Somewhere I Belong, Chapter 8, Part 3. Nope, no idea. Probably a personal issue, he said as he stopped in front of the barn, where he saw Mac about to close the massive doors. Hey Mac, just returning some tools I borrowed, he said as he picked up the muddy shovel and made his way into the barn. He left the tools in their proper places. As he walked by Mac, the red stallion smelled the human's odor. Isaac, I don't mean to cause offense, but you need a shower, Mac said as he closed his nose with his fingers. Sorry, jewel hunting is hard work, he said with a weak grin. You can use our shower if you want, Mac said as he pointed inside. I couldn't ask you for. It's no trouble. Do you have a change of clothes? Yeah, Rarity just gave me some, he said as he held up the bag. Good. Upstairs, last door in the hall, he said as Isaac nodded and made his way into the house. As the human walked upstairs, his mind was filled with thoughts fighting with one another. She likes me like that? Shut up, don't even think about it. But do I? No, she's a pony for Christ's sake. So, Aloe and Lotus said their cousin is dating a griffin. Spike and Rarity seem to be doing fine. So why the hell shouldn't I at least try to have a relationship? They aren't human, I noticed, but they do have human features, and he was cut off as he opened the bathroom door and saw the soaking wet orange mare step out of the shower. Applejack's face turned crimson, and her brain seemed to stop. Isaac had never seen her with her hair down. The water made her golden mane stick to her orange body. The human's face turned bright red, and his jaw hit the floor. What the hell are you doing here? She yelled as she reached for a towel. Isaac snapped out of the trance and slammed the door shut. Sorry, he yelled as he walked back down the hallway. He took shelter in the kitchen until he heard the bathroom door open and close again. He snuck by the orange mare's room and quickly made his way into the bathroom. He started it off cold to soothe his arousal and started to switch it to warm water. He let out a sigh as the warm water washed away the layer of dirt that he had accumulated from his jewel expedition. As he dried himself off, he looked over the ensemble Rarity had given him. A white, short-sleeved collared shirt with red stripes reaching from the shoulders to the sleeve ends. The pants were dark blue, with a red stripe running down the right leg. He threw on the apparel and stuffed his dirty clothes in the bag and walked out of the house in silence. As Isaac cleared Sweet Apple Acres, a familiar cyan blur landed next to him. Hey dude, how's your birthday been so far? She asked with a smile. Can't complain, went jewel hunting and got some new clothes, he said as he looked at his ensemble. Isaac smiled at her and noticed that she was wearing a sleek black dress that ended at her mid-thighs. She was wearing a pair of black shoes that reached up to her ankles. Why are you so dressed up? He asked as he looked at her outfit. The Pegasus' face instantly turned bright red. What, don't I look good? She asked as she struck a pose. No, you look great, he said as he hid his blush. Thanks, you look good too, she said with a small grin. Where are you going anyway? The library, she said in a flat tone. Why? Twice got the new Daring Do book, and I want to get an early copy. And you got all dressed up for that, he said as he raised an eyebrow. So, the mayor tried to think of something clever, but just let out a sigh as they neared the massive tree. As the two entered, the lights flicked on to reveal a group of mayors with smiles on their faces, with a banner in the background reading, Happy Birthday. The ponies yelled the phrase at Isaac, who felt a smile creep across his face. He looked over at Rainbow, who had a smug grin on her face. Let me guess, Pinky? Yep. So that's why Rarity needed my help with jewel hunting. Should have seen that one coming. Okay, that's enough talking, you two. Let's party, Pinky said as the music flared and the drinks began to flow. Isaac noticed that Soren, Big Mac, and a few other stallions had shown up to the human's surprise. The human let out a sigh and made his way over to Applejack, who had a mug of cider in her hand. She quickly pulled her hat down over her face to hide her blush. Hey, AJ, can we talk? About what? She asked as she sipped her drink. About what happened at the farm, he said with a small blush. Applejack spat out the drink in surprise. Isaac gave her a napkin and she wiped her face. Thanks. I just want to apologize for walking in on you like that. I should have knocked, he said as he wiped his face with a towel. It's fine, I know you wouldn't peep on me like that. It did take you a while to close the door, though, she said as she glared at the man. I was like a deer in headlights, he protested. What? Human term. I mean, I was just shocked and my brain froze. Applejack had a sly grin creep across her face. So I'm that bad to look at, am I? Isaac felt his face flare up. No, you didn't look bad. I was just surprised how you looked so... Isaac paused before he continued. So what? She asked as she leaned in and tipped her hat up. Human, he said as he let out a gulp. The farmer felt her heart skip a beat, and her face turned bright red. Thanks, I think. Again, I'm sorry. Applejack put a finger to his lips before he said another word. It's all right, Sugar Cube. No harm done. Just be sure to at least buy me a drink first next time, she said with a wink. The mayor removed her finger and walked over to Rainbow and Ditzy. Isaac's brain seemed to go blank as he slowly walked over to Twilight, who was chatting with Lyra. Hey, Isaac, enjoying the party? Lyra asked. Yeah, it's great. I'm a little surprised to see so many stallions here, though, he said as he looked around the room. Why? Lyra asked as she sipped her drink. Aloe and Lotus told me that the ratio was 1 stallion for every 10 mares. The unicorns looked at one another and started to giggle. What? Man, those two must have wanted you bad, Lyra said with a laugh. Well, this is a matriarch society. The ratio isn't that drastic, Twilight said with a smile. What? The ratio is more like 7-3. Then why haven't I seen too many stallions around town? They just left because most of the mares go into heat around this time. I keep hearing that term. What does heat cycle mean? He asked as he made quotation marks with his fingers. Lyra started to whistle to herself while Twilight rubbed her head. Okay, once every few months, mares go through their heat cycle. It makes them more sexually active than usual, so most stallions skip town to try to avoid being hounded by all the mares in Ponyville. Isaac nodded his head. Wait, why didn't most of them go after me then? Probably because you're a different species and you intimidated them, Lyra explained. Apparently not everyone feels that way, he said as the memory of his session with the twins came back to him. He looked over to see the 2 spa ponies making their way to him. Speaking of which, he said as he looked at them straight in the eye. Look, Isaac, we just wanted to apologize for our behavior the other day, Aloe said in a low tone. Our heat cycle was particularly bad this year. It was extremely unprofessional, and we shouldn't have tried to force ourselves onto you like that, Lotus said as she averted her eyes. Twilight also told me that the ratio is 7-3, when you told me it was 10-1. Did we say that? Again, we're sorry. Isaac let out a sigh and nodded his head. It's fine, you two weren't the first ones to try and get me into bed against my will, he said as he poured himself and the mares a drink. The spa pony smiled at him and took the glasses. Let's just bury the hatchet, he said as they clanged glasses and drank. The drinks continued to flow as Isaac challenged Soren to an arm wrestling match, which Isaac won, but lost miserably to Big Mac. Isaac introduced the ponies to beer pong, which ended with the human and the cyan mare beating the farmer and the party animal. Soon the ponies began to leave the library, leaving Isaac and the other mares in a drunken state. Isaac slowly got to his feet and smirked at the sleeping mares. He walked over to Twilight's desk and withdrew a black marker. I really shouldn't, but on the other hand, I'll never get another chance like this again, he said as he drew a monocle over Pinky's right eye. When he was done, he capped the marker and marveled at his work. Twilight had a tic-tac-toe board on her right cheek. Spike had a French mustache drawn over his scales. Rarity, who was asleep on his chest, had a drawn-on unibrow. Fluttershy was left untouched, while Applejack had a goatee on her face. As Isaac stepped away, Twilight had turned over and wrapped her arms around the orange mare. Isaac pulled out his phone and took a quick snapshot. As he made his way upstairs, he looked back at the 5 mares and dragon. He rubbed his eyes and recounted. He shrugged as his brain tried to recount the graffitied mares. He opened his door and removed his shirt, as his brain clicked. Wait, where's Rain? He was cut off as a soft object tackled him on the bed. He looked up to see the cyan mare straddling him, and looking at him with a seductive look in her eyes. What are you? He was cut off as she pressed her lips against his. Isaac felt the mare's tongue feel around inside of his mouth. Isaac returned the gesture and felt his member pressing against his jeans. Rainbow broke the kiss and let out a breath. Wow, AJ wasn't kidding. You are good, she said as she got off the human. Thanks, not so bad yourself, he said as he tried to sit up, but his arm slipped and he fell on his back against the bed. He looked up to see Rainbow removing her sleek dress and throwing it on the floor. Isaac felt his jaw drop at the mare's toned body, and felt his heart rate increase as she walked closer and crawled over his body like a cat. She locked lips with him a second time and let out a moan of pleasure as her wings stood at full attention. Rainbow broke the kiss and reached down and stroked his clothed member. She smirked and unbuttoned his pants, making his member pop out of his boxers. "Looks like somebody wants to get naughty," she said in a seductive tone. Isaac could barely keep focus as the mare positioned herself above his groin. From this point forward, the chapter gets a little explicit. "Rainbow, I don't think that..." He was cut off as the mare started to massage his shaft. "I don't see the reason why we shouldn't. You're hot, I'm hot, and don't act like you're not enjoying this," she said as she stopped rubbing the shaft. "But you're a pony and... So, Spike is a dragon and he's going out with Rarity," she said as she positioned herself over his erect cock. But he was cut off as the mare slowly slid his shaft inside of her. Rainbow let out a moan of pleasure as she slowly began to move up and down. Isaac could feel his member being squeezed by Dash's tight slit. He returned the action with an upward thrust, causing Rainbow to cry out in ecstasy. "Oh fuck, that feels good," she said as she began to bounce harder. Isaac smirked and flipped the mare on her back, so he was on top of her. He pressed his lips against hers and pushed his tongue into her wanting mouth. He began to caress her breast in his palm, making her go wild in passion. He pushed deeper inside of the mare, who was close to a climax. "Please don't stop," she said in a pleading voice. Isaac continued the motions as he felt her walls clamp around his member, trying to squeeze out its prize. The mare wrapped her legs and hands around the human as she flipped so she was back on top of him. Isaac placed his hands on the mare's waist and began to thrust faster. "Isaac, I'm going to..." Her words came out too late as her slit grew tighter and Isaac felt the mare's fluids coat his shaft. He increased his thrusts and felt a pressure build inside of him. "Just like that. Harder," Rainbow said as she began to pant. "Dash, I'm going to..." "Don't stop," she said as she felt her eyes roll back. Isaac doubled his rate. Isaac felt instinct take over and gave a final thrust as he released into the mare, causing her to cry out in passion. Rainbow slid herself off the man and collapsed panting on his chest. Isaac looked down and saw that there was blood coming from the mare's pussy. "Dash, are you a..." "Not anymore," she said as she nuzzled his chest and closed her eyes. Rainbow smiled and drifted off to sleep in the man's embrace. Isaac felt the adrenaline wear off and felt his body beginning to relax. His eyes felt heavy as he let sleep take him, with the cyan mare in his arms. Rainbow's eyes opened for a second, and she let out a sigh. "Too bad I can't have you all to myself," she said as she felt sleep take her.